welcome everybody. Today's session, which is about the Accessible Information Standard, everything you need to know about the Accessible Information Standard. My name is Hasib Ahmed, I'm the Head of Equality, Diversity, Inclusion. We have got a very informative session for you this afternoon. Before I commence, may I take the opportunity to welcome the Chair of Leicestershire Partnership Trust, Kathy Ellis, to say a few words prior to us getting into the detailed session.
Thank you, Hasib. So this is our second in a series of 3 sessions that we're holding during Disability History Month, and in our first session we really focused on our staff experience of working, if you have a disability, what it's like working in LPT and what it's like being a line manager of somebody with a disability in LPT. And we talked about increasing awareness and understanding so that everybody felt comfortable and welcome in the workplace. So today, in our second session, we're talking about the Accessible Information Standard, which appeared in August 2016, and that was really to improve patients' access to services. And so today we're really going to focus probably a lot more on the patient experience of living with a disability. So I mentioned just as we had our chat prior to this that there is a NHSI film that talks about the Accessible Information Standard. It's only 4 minutes long and it's really quick and easy to watch. Di tells me it's on StaffNet and she's going to make sure we can find it there, but really it explains what's required to try and help our patients access our services. So in every case we should be asking, what's the best way to contact you? What format do you need it in, and what other support do you need? So I'm sure Hasib will talk about this in a lot more detail. So that's just a brief overview from me, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined today. We are doing as much as we can on our disability standard, so I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about this today. Over to you, Hasib.
Thanks very much, Kathy. So while we hopefully wait for the slides to come up, I'll just introduce my colleagues who will be joint presenting with myself, introduce themselves. Di, Beanie, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Di Graham. I'm a communications specialist for patient information with a particular interest in accessible information.
And Beanie's doing a slide later, so you can introduce yourself now, Beanie, if you like. Or yeah.
Hi, I'm Beanie Couture, and I'll be talking about the services we offer as the interpreting and translating service of LPT.
Fantastic. Okay, and if there's anyone here that wants to actually share some of their own experiences, please do tell us, come in, let us know if there's things that we haven't mentioned or that they would like to signpost people to. We have got an opportunity for people to ask questions at the end, but please do, if you have any questions, please do raise your hand or put it in the chat box. One of us will pick that up. So if we go to slide 2, an outline of the session, and let me know if when that pops up and everyone can see it.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. So as Kathy said, we'll be talking about what the Accessible Information Standard requires. How are we going to be able to record very important part of the Accessible Information 5 steps of the standard, how we record that information. And really importantly, how to make information accessible, how to meet people's needs, and where you can go for help and support. So the next slide, please, and over to you, Di.
Yeah, so the Accessible Information Standard was made a legislative requirement on the 31st of July 2016, so that we and other statutory agencies can meet the communication needs of patients and service users and carers with disabilities. to enable them to access appropriate health and social care information. And it also ensures compliance with the general and specific duties of the Equality Act 2010 and the Health and Social Care Act of 2012. It's beneficial to both staff and to patients. It ensures patients have all the information they need to make an informed decision, and it allows staff to evidence that they have provided correct information in the appropriate format for patients. So it's win-win, really. Next slide, please. Can anybody name the 5 steps of the Accessible Information Standard? There are 5 things that we have to do, which every clinician, regardless of their role, has to complete in order to be compliant with the Act.
Do you want to speak up or put your answers in the chat box? We'll see what we've got. This is the interactive bit for you to come in and
this is the pressure bit.
Yes. No Christmas quiz today. This is your quiz.
Yep, record is one of them. Yep, ask is the first one. You've got to ask. I think Haseeb's going to go into them in a bit more depth.
I'll just wait for them to come through. What's that?
Yeah, ask, record.
Yeah. They're coming in. This is good.
Yeah, how they would like information to be provided. So
very good. Yeah.
Share as part of a referral. Very good. That we have to flag and share to other organisations and let them know communication needs beforehand where possible.
So let's go to the next slide then.
Yeah, take action on
5 steps, isn't it? It's just the 5 steps. So absolutely ask people if they have any communication needs. The very first step, and this should be done when the first time a patient or service user comes into contact with a service. Also, if it's something that's been asked somewhere else and it's on the system, it's not, that information should have been passed on by primary care or another provider. But if it's not, we need to check that actually that's done. Now, so a patient or service user who shared that information previously should not need to ask that again. That is part of the requirement, really, because that is an issue for people with disabilities or health conditions, that they have to keep on repeating what their needs are. So that's a quite important part. Record. People have already picked this up. It needs to be recorded in the same way, and that the information is clear and easy to understand. We're going to go into the tutorial in a second, but I'll just run through the other 3. Alert or flag. So a system should be able to alert and flag what that need is when a patient actually comes into contact. And again, that's something that the tutorial will be able to sort of show you where you can find that. Share. Somebody's picked that up already. Share that information with other services and other providers, obviously with the permissions from service users and patients that you can do that. And act, obviously, take steps to meet that need. So let's click on the link, Abby, and let's share this really good video that our colleagues have helped us to pull together. So it was a learning and development die that pulled this together?
No, it was LHIS. Because the whole trust now is on System 1 and most of primary care is, it should be quite seamless if things are flagged on System 1. But this is a tutorial for all staff to say what they should be doing and how to do it. And it also emphasises that if there are no communication needs, you should actually record that element too, so that there is no doubt what communication needs there are.
Fantastic. Right, let's see if this works. Abby can click on that link. Share his.
I've clicked on it. Can you see it or hear it?
No.
No. Okay.
Abby, just a heads up, you need to make sure that you're sharing the sound when you go to share the screen.
Yeah, because I just clicked on it. It didn't give me that option. Let me do it the normal way that I normally do. So I'm not waiting forever.
So I was very impressed with this video.
Today, we are going to be looking at the LLR Accessible Information Standards template. This template is used to record patients' communication needs. This replaces the previous LPT inclusive communication tool. The LLR Accessible Information Standards template has been implemented in order to standardise the way that LPT and Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland GP practices record patients' communication needs. How to record a patient's communication needs. Firstly, you will need to log into System 1 and open your patient's record. Then on the left-hand side on your clinical tree, locate the LLR Accessible Information Standards template. You may need to use your scroll bar to do this. Once you have located the LLR Accessible Information Standards template, right-click on it from the clinical tree and select the top option with the name of your template. This will then open the LLR Accessible Information Standards template. Always ensure that you have read the instructions at the top of the page to make sure that you are recording appropriate information for your patient in the right section. On the screen, you can see a variety of different communication needs with an associated tick box. Review the different communication needs on the page, and if any of them are appropriate to your patient, select the correlating tick box. If there are any additional notes that you need to record about that communication need, select the pencil icon next to the tick, and you'll be given a free text box in order to type the communication need in more detail. If you have recorded a communication need for your patient and added additional notes, you'll be able to see a green tick appear on top of the pencil icon. Always ensure that you check your template to see if there is a scroll bar, as there may be additional information towards the bottom of the page that you might miss. Next, we are going to have a look at the second tab on this template, named Communication Requirements. On this screen, we do have a variety of different communication requirements that might be applicable to your patient. So again, review the options on the page, and if any of them are appropriate, select the tick box. And similarly, if you need to record any additional notes about that communication requirement, select the pencil icon. Alternatively, if you have reviewed the items within the communication template and it is felt that your patient does not have any communication needs or requirements, this will also need to be documented on your patient's record. The way to do that is to go back to the first tab, and in the top right-hand corner, we have a quick action button named No Needs. To record that your patient has no communication needs, select the button and you'll be given a free text box to enter into that your patient has no communication needs. Once you are happy with the information that you have recorded on the Accessible Information Standards template, you can select OK at the bottom of the screen. You will then be able to see the information you've just recorded within the patient's record. How to view existing communication needs. There are a number of ways how to view existing communication needs recorded within your patient's record. We're going to go through a few of them now. The first way is on your clinical tree, just above the LLR Accessible Information Standards template, is the LLR Last Recorded Communication Needs. Select that from the clinical tree and you'll be able to see any previous communication needs documented on this screen. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the Inclusive Communication Questionnaire entries. The example that we're using today with our test patient has not had one of these templates previously completed. However, if your patient has had one of these completed in the past, it would display within this section at the bottom, and you would be able to click into it similar to the other communication needs located further up the page. The next place how you can view the information recorded for patient communication needs can be from the patient's tab journal. The tab journal will work in the same way that it has done previously, where you will have your full list of everything entered onto the patient record in date order. So you may need to scroll through it or search for any communication needs via that method. The third method is through the patient home screen. The communication needs are located in the patient status alert section. At the moment, we cannot see this due to there being quite a large number of high priority reminders. You can either use the scroll button to go down the page or minimize the high priority reminders to be able to see the next section. At the very top, we can see for this patient that they do have a communication need. Also, the fourth way to be able to see if your patient has an existing communication needs is on the addressor graph in the top right-hand corner. You'll be looking for an icon that is a box with a red question mark over the top. By hovering your mouse over the top of this icon, you will be able to see at a glance what communication need the patient has and also the date that it was recorded onto the record. To be able to view that in more detail, similarly to how we viewed the last recorded communications on the clinical tree, you can double click this and it will take you back to that view. This view is located on the third tab of the LLR Accessible Information Standards, as well as the clinical tree that we previously looked at. Once you're happy with the information you've documented into your patient's record, always remember to select the Save icon.
Thank you very much. I think that is the end of the demonstration of how to record on System 1 on the accessible information requirements of patients and service users. So, Di, over to you.
Again, Hasib, that is on StaffNet. If you do a search under the Accessible Information Standard, that tutorial is within that page. Abby, do you think you could put the slides up again? I think we're on slide 6.
Yep, they're coming up.
Oh, thank you. Brilliant, thank you. So, obviously, service users and patients with disabilities covers a multitude of conditions. So here's a few hints and tips for people with a learning disability and other cognitive impairments. We have produced an introduction to the Accessible Information Standard and a tutorial and how to get access to Widget Online, which is a really good tool for creating individualised communications for people who need graphics as well as words to understand things. So the first thing to say really is that for communication to be effective, it has to be totally tailor-made to the individual. By creating generic, easy read information, you will make it easier to understand, but the ideal solution, and for individual care plans, for example, you would have to tailor make your communication to that individual's needs and preferences. So use what's best for them, whether it's signing, pictures, objects. Get people ready for communication. If it's one-to-one, sit at eye level, face them so that they can see your face. Obviously, it's not so easy at the moment with face masks, but Binny, I'm sure, will cover that in her session. Always use short sentences and speak slowly. Use simple, straightforward language and break down language into small chunks. Avoid jargon and use concrete language, avoiding idioms. For example, I've got butterflies in my stomach. Avoid sarcasm and verbal jokes. People with a learning disability tend to take things literally, so you've got to be mindful of that. You will need extra time to communicate with anybody with a communication need, and allow that person time to respond to what you say. So that's definitely something to take into consideration, you know, when planning future appointments. Next slide, please, Abby. Yeah, so be prepared to repeat what you say a number of times. Try to use demonstrations or examples to actually animate what you're saying rather than just verbalising things. Check constantly what the person's understanding is of what you've said. It's really easy to fall into the trap of saying, do you understand that? People will try to please clinicians at the end of the day and will just say yes when they have or not 9 times out of 10. So it's your responsibility to check that that patient has the understanding they need to make an informed decision. Easy read information can help people understand and remember things, but should be limited to absolutely essential information. It's quite time consuming to produce easy read information, so should just be the essential information that that person needs and back up the conversation that you've had as a clinician with that person. And it's over to Hasib for the next slide.
So for people with visual impairments, okay, there is a wide range of visual impairments. In fact, those people who cannot see at all are probably more of a minority in the sort of visually impaired population. So I think it's really important, again, to ask how that person wants their information. It may be that people who are partially sighted, for example, want things in large print. Arial font is usually a good one to go for because it's simple and you know, there's no sort of fancy styles involved. And you may want to produce things that are 14 point, anything up to 18 or more. But like I said, really important that you ask about color contrast, because for different people, different things work. It may not be that you've got to produce something in print format and people actually want something that's sent to them digitally. And again, ask, because there's a lot of formats, for example, PDF documents, scanned in documents that don't actually work, and sometimes people want Word. And don't make an assumption that blind people necessarily want something in Braille. Some do, some don't. And some technologies now will allow patients to their end produce the Braille using very fancy now Braille output sort of technology that doesn't require actually the printing out of Braille. So really important, and a lot of these things don't cost anything at all. But yes, where people do require things in Braille and they want them sent in Braille, that's something that we can actually produce, and Beanie will be talking more about a little later on. So I think back over to you, Di, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Right, so hints and tips in general to communicate effectively, ensure that all of your face is visible to the person. I'm sorry, jumped about from slide. So yeah, so hints and tips for hard of hearing or deaf people. Very difficult at the moment, but try to ensure that all of your face is visible to the person to allow them to read your lips if that works for them. Book British Sign Language interpreters for those who need it, and that's through Binny, as she'll explain to you. Book a deaf-blind interpreter if that is required, and ensure induction loops are working or are available for those with hearing aids. You need to ensure that you've got good lighting and that the person can clearly see your face. Thanks, Abby. Yeah, so hints and tips in general. Always consult with the individual. To communicate effectively, you need to know what is best for them, and don't make assumptions about certain ways of communicating with certain conditions. It's totally down to the individual and has to be. Some people might prefer to bring someone along who is able to interpret for them, which is fine as long as there's no safeguarding or information governance concerns. And the subject matter has to be taken into consideration, obviously. And again, you will need to, I don't think it is a you may, it is, you will need to set aside additional time if the person that you're communicating with has a specific communication need. And I think it's over to Binny.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm just briefly going to talk about the services that you can access to enable all of the things that Haseeb and I have talked about. So in August, September 2020, because of the pandemic, there was a huge shift in information sharing, which actually moved from face-to-face for interpreting over to virtual. And so LPT as an organization took on another provider in place of Language Line, whom we had earlier. So we took on a provider called Word 360, who now offer us the full range of virtual interpreting services, as well as BSL interpreters, deaf blind interpreters, information in Braille, information in large print or easy read. In January next year, they've told us they're in the process of launching an accessibility standard toolkit for all organizations, and LPT will be included in that. But when the launch happens, they'll let us know and they'll give us some guidance on how to actually put it on our staff net and make sure everybody's available. With regards to the practicalities, all departments and services within LPT and all GP surgeries have now been set up with an ID code to access services from WordSki. WordSki is the online portal of Word 360. So if you need to access a BSL interpreter, if you need to ask for Braille translation or information in other formats, you'll need a login, which is your department ID, and a password, which you use to log into the WordSki portal. If you have problems in accessing WordSki, you can email me on LPT request Sujala. I've just put the email address there, and I can help you with getting in touch with WordSki. It's a straightforward, easy to use portal. Any problems you have, you can come through to Ujala, to myself, through this requests address. Yeah.
Thanks, Binny. That toolkit sounds like a really exciting development, to be honest. That's good. So the resources available. If you log into StaffNet and search for the accessible information, there is a PowerPoint presentation about how to produce things in Easy Read and further accessible information standard training for staff. That's the code to it, but we'll make this presentation available after the session. But it is all on StaffNet under accessible information. Widget is a new resource that the patient experience team have secured licenses for across the trust. And if your team would benefit from a widget license, contact Alison Kirk or myself and I can put you in touch. It's a brilliant resource that you just type a word in and it brings up a graphic. It's amazing. There's also photo symbols, which is a range of photographs of people, objects, places, emotions and scenarios. Some people prefer photographs rather than images. So if your patient prefers photos, then photo symbols is the resource to use. It should be on most hard drives, but if you need to access it and can't, please drop me an email and I will get the whole library transferred to your server so that you can access it. You can use photo symbols in Widget. Widget is very good for templates, but you can pull in your own photographs of either yourself or the service user, the patient, to really personalise and make your communications real. Yep, so that's that slide of the resources available. And support to get it right. Creating easy read documents is a skill. It's very hard to actually get down to the bottom, to bottom out the essentials of what you need to tell somebody, and to use the language that is the simplest language it can be. Now, if you work in a directorate, the speech and language therapists will be able to support you with that. We were trying to set up kind of a mentorship arrangement whereby if you were producing easy read information on a regular basis, you would be offered a mentor for the first 6 or 7 times to guide you through being able to create easy read information. So in the first instance, if you're a clinician in one of the directorates, contact your speech and language therapy team for support. If at the moment all clinicians are snowed under, so I'm happy to act as a backup to the directorates. And if you're part of enabling services, contact me directly. We can certainly go through further training. But the PowerPoint that I described earlier would be a really good starting point, and then you can come through to either the speech and language therapists or myself, and we can take you on from that. So you're not on your own. And it's over to you, Hasib.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I wasn't quite sure. It's not telling me whether I'm on mute or not, actually, which is not very helpful. So in conclusion, Accessible Information Standard affects everyone, not just those with communication needs, in respect of how we deliver our services. And every clinician has to record whether or not someone has a communications need, whether they have that need or not. It's something that's really important. And whilst it's a legal requirement, there are really good reasons, and I think everyone on this call understands that if we're ensuring that the needs of all patients and service users that have communication and information needs are being met, that's very, very important that those needs are recorded in the right way, and that we ensure that we pick up what those needs are and then take the appropriate steps to meet those needs. And as you know, the resources are, Di's got into great detail in terms of what resources are available, so you're not on your own. And hopefully today has given you some more confidence, some more information about what to do, what is required, where to go. And as Di said, this recording will be made available, as well as the recording and all the resources. All of those will be on StaffNet, and we'll keep plugging away on this. Lastly, and not least of all, we have to actually report the numbers of communication needs that we are actually recording, and to what extent we're actually meeting those needs to our commissioners. And it's not just information that commissioners receive. They want to be satisfied that actually we're complying with the Accessible Information Standard, but more importantly, those people that are most vulnerable, and this is the point, in our communities are being adequately catered for. They're getting the information they need and they're communicating to us and we're communicating to them in a way which actually doesn't make their situation scenario worse, in order that we address and tackle any health inequalities that they're facing. So hopefully that goes into some detail there for you. And the next slide is really, are there any questions that anybody has? Please don't be shy. We've done a lot of the talking. If there's anything that you thought about, any questions that come to mind in terms of what's required, what you need to do, where you need to go, please do ask. Hands up or in the chat box, whatever you're comfortable with. Give you a couple of minutes to think of that. Was that helpful? I mean, I'll ask you a question. For those of you who are still on the call, hopefully you all are here. Could you tell us, was that helpful? Do you think that will enable you to better meet the information needs of those people who've got disabilities, health conditions, who require accessible information and communication?
So there's a question, has
I've seen that,
any of this information been communicated to GP practices? GP practices are under the same requirement as us to comply with the Accessible Information Standard. Certainly would be more than happy to share the tutorial with System 1 with them, or any help we can give them. You know, the ultimate aim is to get our patients the information that they need when they need it. So, you know, we wouldn't be precious about anything, but the GPs have exactly the same requirements on them as we have.
And they have had all the information in terms of what they are required to do. And System 1, the System 1 template actually was developed a few years ago. In fact, when I was working at the CCG, we picked it up really, really quickly. But as Di says, you know, not necessarily the actual video is very new, and we've only just produced that video, the demonstration video. So I think that's going to be really, really helpful. And as Di says, I mean, we will make this available more widely. So, you know, yeah, we're not precious about it, are we, Di, at all? So anything that helps.
The further we can spread the word, the better, to be honest. It just makes it better for everybody.
Is there something else that's come in the chat box I've noticed? I don't know if that's a comment or a question. Yeah,
so have these been out to committee services like VAL and voluntary groups? We haven't, to be honest, Grant, but maybe we should definitely make groups representing anybody with a disability who has a communication need. Maybe we should make those groups aware of what we're doing to meet what we need to.
Yeah, I mean, that meant to be community groups, or community and committed, actually.
Right.
My dyslexia coming in.
Right.
But the community and that one, and the committees and all those things as well, yeah.
That's a really good point, Grant. We would like to do further engagement with those groups to show them what they can expect from the Accessible Information Standard and what they can expect from our trust. So it's a really good point, and I'll definitely take that up with Alison.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.
Thank you for that.
I think there's somebody who wants to make a comment there. I think I picked up, but I'm not sure who that is or whether the comment's already been made.
So it's from Sheila Ashton from Comms. It's likely to be pivotal in terms of patient experience, in addition to us meeting statutory and contractual duties, don't you think? Absolutely, that is the driving force behind it, is to make the patient experience better and to ensure that those patients can actually make informed decisions about their healthcare. And I think that is the most fundamental thing. You know, if patients can't understand the information that they're being given, how on earth can they make informed consent decisions? It's totally fundamental to that.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's a really helpful comment. Okay, so I don't think that's really helpful. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. I don't think there's anything else we've got to add, but add to the session today. But if you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to come to us. So we picked up a few actions from the few people that have contributed, so that's great. And we'll send out information about where you can find this session and any other information.
Sorry,
I'm just reading
there's a few comments coming in.
I'm just reading here. Yeah, so we've got Sean. Okay, so the widget. Yeah, I've got the widget one. It does sound interesting, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get anyone from speech and language therapy to demonstrate today. They were all very, very busy. Which is quite understandable with the service pressures at the moment. But hopefully we can probably arrange at some point in the future, can't we, Di, somebody from one of those teams to actually demonstrate, standalone demonstration. There are more licenses available, by the way, as well, from what I understand. So we do really want a good take-up from all services, really, because it's not just about speech and language therapy, it's community services, adult mental health services, because obviously, you know, people who require visual aids will cut across all the different services we provide. And I think there was another comment there, Di, that I didn't quite catch from Sean. Didn't read too quickly. But...
Can I just add something to the widget one? If you access StaffNet, you will see a presentation under Accessible Information Standard, which is an introduction to widget. It will it also gives you really good videos showing patients' experience of good communication and the impact that bad communication has on them, which is really, you know, like Sheila says, what we're trying to make better. But within that presentation, you will be able to, it shows you how to get a license for your team, and there's various online tutorials. It is an online resource, so there are various online tutorials.
That's great. Sean, did you want to come in? Did you want to make a comment there? Because you are working with the CCG at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us here today. It's all been part of. I've come along to a few of the events, and well, I came along to the one last week. Yes, it's a comment from Armadip. We'll meet up outside of here to look at disseminating this around our GP practices. So I think my name's come up because you sent it to me. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me. It's been really impressive, and you know, it's helped me understand what we're doing across Leicestershire as well.
No problem at all, Sean. You're very welcome. We'll send that through. Di, just a quick question for you from me. Yeah. Is I know it's on StaffNet, but I'm kind of wondering, actually, would it be helpful between Richard and yourself to get the recording put on our web pages, maybe on the EDI page or wherever it sits most appropriately? I think it might be helpful.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why we wouldn't share it publicly, to be honest.
So I think that would kind of help in terms of any sharing that we do across primary care and showcase the great work that we are doing, you know.
Yeah.
I think that would be very, very helpful.
Obviously, the widget licenses are purely for LPT staff, but you'd be most welcome to the learning around widget. Just that we do need to protect those licenses for LPT staff.
Yes. Of course. Good call there. Good call there. All right. Anything else from anybody?
Can I just add something, Haseeb? It's Binny.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, with regards to GP practices also access Word 360, who are our providers for all the services we talked about earlier. So Word 360 have, when they launch their toolkit, it'll obviously apply to LPT and all the GP practices as well. So they'll also know about what's coming up.
I think that's really helpful. And the thing to remember there is, you know, so there's two facets to this in a sense. The first is, you know, are we recording? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if it's not being recorded, is the question being asked in the first place? Because the two things come hand in hand. And if you don't record it, as I said before, when it comes to actually a clinician picking that up at the earliest opportunity and ensuring that person's need is being met, it becomes much more difficult and challenging, and the chances are we're going to miss that opportunity. So and once it's recorded, I'm sure that information would be able to be extracted. So you'll be able to know actually to what extent those that need is being recorded. So the second part of this is obviously Beanie's role in terms of being able to extract where people have actually booked interpreters and where Braille has been requested. It won't pick up every single thing, but obviously there are some things which, if it's not going through Word 360 or through Beanie, they may not be recorded, and there may be things that are going on that we're not aware of. But whatever is recorded and in the system, we can demonstrate how that need is being met. And I think that's the other important part of this, with that obviously caveat that there will be other ways of meeting people's communication needs that don't necessarily get captures in System 1. We just got to get a little bit more savvy in terms of how we actually do that going forward. So I hope that helps. Anything else, Di? Is there anything else that's come through?
So if anybody wants any further information, just send me an email, or yourself, Haseeb.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, myself, Di, or if it's to do with interpretation translation, Beanie, between us, we'll be able to hopefully field any queries that come through. Other than that, I really hope that today was useful. As I said, we'll put the resources on and we'll let you know in due course when that happens.